And I'm on mute. Hello and welcome along to another episode of the DePIN Coffee Hour. I'm your host, Neil Sisson, and it's brought to you from Havelo, home of the 88% APY staking for your HVLO tokens. Go now to staking.havelo.com. Today on the show, I am joined by Nate from somewhere in deep space, it looks like, or maybe a secret underground layer. I'm not exactly sure.
It's the new layer.
Welcome to the show, Nate.
Thanks, Neil.
And also Bradley from DePIN Connection, who looks like he's somewhere a lot sunnier and warmer than I am, that's for sure. And also Ed from Ping Network. Welcome along, gents. Sorry for my little mess up there at the start with my microphone muted. How are you all doing?
Good.
Awesome. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, having a good morning. I'm not in my normal studio today, so I'm outside. I don't have good lighting where I'm at, so I figured do some natural lighting today.
Yeah. Listen, anywhere that has an outdoor pool is all right in my view, because I live in Ireland, obviously, and it's just rained. It's just been raining nonstop for the last week. So we're there are many Irish people right now praying that the summer is going to come back at some point. Anyway, outdoor pools here are not really something you see a lot of. So yeah, nice. All right. Well, look, just to start off, maybe Nate, could you tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm Nate Harper, and I am one of the co-founders of the Deep Network and NerdNode, representing Deep here. Essentially, NerdNode and Deep they're in tandem, they're working together, and they will eventually be one. NerdNode is a node as a service provider. So what we do is we run blockchain nodes and validators for people, and they pay us money. We make sure they have their uptime and they get rewarded. NerdNode essentially decided to create a infrastructure that was decentralized, a DePIN. That way we could offload that onto the network itself and share in the revenue with the people that are pushing out that hardware into their homes, hence the Deep Network. It's taken us a long time we've been around for almost 4 years now, actually a little over 4 years. And, we've been working on that for about 3 to 3.5 of that in a lot of different iterations. And what we've come up with now is, we're in, I think, over 500 cities in 34 countries right now. So with 1,776 devices. So that's what we're doing.
Amazing. So just for the uninitiated who might be listening, in terms of like node as a service and how that works, you're essentially saying, okay, I do not want the hassle or the technical jiggery pokery that's required to know how, etc., to set up a node. Therefore, you do it for me. I'm going to pay you money, and you're going to take care of everything. Is that kind of?
That's exactly what it is. We make it super easy, super simple for people because a lot of people want to participate in that ecosystem, most likely to earn rewards from hosting those nodes, but some just want to run the nodes because they support the ecosystem themselves or validators themselves. And so this started with me again, almost 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. Actually, it's 2025. I have to say this is 5 years ago now. My time just goes away.
Time flies, especially in the dilated time that we have.
Right. I got involved with a project that had nodes in the ecosystem, and they were constantly going down. You were constantly have to update software, and it became, with the amount of nodes that I had, it became a very hard job to continue managing those. And so I created NerdNode from there, and hired some people on to help me manage those, and then essentially grew it from that point in time, and then brought in a couple partners into NerdNode, and from there decided to go the DePIN route. But yeah, we just wanted to make it super simple. And it came from a need that I had personally, and there was friends of mine now that helped me out in the very, very beginning, and they had kind of their own NAS that started, and so it just kind of grew from there. So,
right, cool. So, would you say that it's a pure ROI play in the sense that, like, if I wanted to become a node, you know, I'm okay. I want to contribute to the ecosystem because I believe in decentralization and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I feel like as an industry, we're kind of still at that stage, maybe by and large. But do you see it getting to a point where you're like, okay, where I'm saying, okay, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars today in the hope that it's going to turn into, you know, over the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to turn into a positive return on investment? Or
Well, yeah, I'll talk. So the big difference that we have, and I know Bradley's going to like this, is we have real world income. Like we have actual dollars that people pay us, like real dollars, not magic internet money that's out there, but real dollars that people pay us that we are now sharing 50-50 in that revenue with those device owners. So take the token and the play out of the token idea out of it and everything else. Like the actual idea that really started this all is the fact that we are now offloading the hardware requirements to people around the world and sharing in that revenue with them, like real world revenue. So we do have 3 earning aspects within the tokenomics that we have and the flywheel effect that we're integrating into the deep network. But to ring it all and bring it all into like the fruition of what's happening here is we, like, again, it's hard for people to conceptualize in the crypto ecosystem of real money, because most of the times you have projects that come in and they have one side or the other, right? They actually have some revenue or they have a great idea that's going on over here, but they don't know how to integrate it into another ecosystem. But the most likely scenario is people have this idea and they want to create it, and they create a token, and the token is released, but there's no real flywheel. There's no actual like money effect to actually continue the tokenomics within that game. And they may have something that is great in the tokenomics that will work out, but they have a hard time getting to that actual money coming in to create the flywheel effect. We're starting from the opposite end. So we actually have income that's being pushed into this from the get-go. And again, we have 3 other earning aspects. People plug in, they earn deep, then we have shared rewards in terms of workloads that come into play. So there's different aspects of earning, but the real world income is a big one. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. I'll come back to, there's a few things I'd like to unpack there. And I'd like to come back to around tokenomics and tokenomic flywheels and stuff, but I'll come back to that after I have let the other guys in the conversation introduce themselves. I'm just going to do this around the house. Bradley, you're next on my screen. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and DePIN Connection?
Absolutely. For having me on. Hopefully I don't know if I'm losing connection here, but and to Nate's point, by the way, I set up my deep hardware yesterday and it was super easy. You literally plug in an Ethernet cable, plug in the power, log in with the email that you ordered with, and you're good to go. Now you do need to open up some ports, to get full rewards eventually as they bring in certain workloads, but it's about as easy as it could possibly be to participate in that project. So huge fan of Deep Network. But a little bit about myself. I actually started, like many people that are probably watching, as a small scale deployer and drew inspiration from Helium in kind of the early stages of Helium, and ended up going from small scale to larger scale. I ended up with about 70 rooftop installs, mostly across the Midwest, and then started looking at other DePIN projects that I could build deployment businesses with. So I scaled my Hive Mapper fleet to 100 drivers, Uber and Lyft drivers across the U.S. and some in South America, and then Demo, another project, scaled up to about 250 vehicles, and then I have Weather XM stations, a bunch of other deployments out there, and then I decided to start a YouTube channel to help spread the word about DePIN and help people get into the space, because there's a lot of stuff to sift through. So kind of with the goal of shortening people's learning curves. So I do deep dives on different DePIN projects. I interview founders. I interviewed Nate about a month ago. I had a really good interview with him. And then I do unboxing and hardware reviews for different mining hardware within the DePIN space. And then I also host a weekly DePIN space on X, and I do daily live streams. So not only covering DePIN, but also covering broader crypto news and global macroeconomics as well.
So you're fairly busy, it's fair to say, by the sounds of things.
Yes, we're staying very busy these days. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of building happening in the DePIN space, man. It's super exciting.
Yeah, there really is. Every time I look at the amount of projects, it's like more and more and more. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see where we're going to go. And something that you said there actually was part of the reason I wanted to do this show as well, because Havelo, like we're kind of trying to target like consumers that are not in Web3 right now, the
Yeah.
Web2 consumer who are, they use Spotify, they use these apps, but they don't, they don't have crypto. They don't really have any interest in crypto. It's kind of something that they're not really that sure about. And yeah, so for us, also making it a little bit more approachable. That's why I tried to, if the conversations here get a little bit too technical, I try to steer them back towards, language that my friend Brian would understand when his eyes glaze over when I start talking about DePIN and decentralization generally. So, yeah, that's awesome. I will definitely have to check out your YouTube channel because I haven't seen it yet. I
Yeah,
did see an ad for the car data one. Demo, is that what you said it was? Or
Demo. Yeah, so
Demo,
I've
yeah, I
worked
saw an ad
directly
for
with
that or
worked
something
directly with
earlier
them
on.
quite a bit too. They do it. They're doing a pretty good job of marketing.
Right,
Demo is helping you leverage your telematics data. So they're essentially creating an open ecosystem for developers to come in and build applications that allow you to leverage your vehicle's telematics data in different ways. They're
right.
generating real revenue as well. Just like Deep Network. By the way, I love what you guys are doing. I agree. I think we both kind of have a common goal, right? Where we're trying to make it easier for people to participate in DePIN and shorten their learning curve. And I think that's really important because we're still so early. I was just at the Bitcoin conference last week, and we did a
Nice.
segment where we were just going around and asking people, "Have you heard of DePIN?" And even at a Bitcoin conference with crypto-minded people, most of them had not. I think
Yeah,
it just, to me, really made me realize, we're kind of in our echo chamber with other DePIN people, but outside of that, we're still very
right.
early. Anything we can do to help bring awareness to the space, shorten people's learning curve, and make it easier to participate, like what you guys are doing, I think is going to help bring the sector to the next stage, if you will.
Yeah, it was the same for us in Paris Blockchain Week, actually, funnily enough. I was really surprised because we were like that as well. We started to kind of, it was so bad, we actually started to kind of keep track. And, it was less than one in, I would say, 50 people that were like, oh, yeah, DeepIn, and actually knew something about it. Because a lot of people said, oh, yeah, I think I heard about that before. But like, you could tell that they didn't really have any understanding about what it was about. So yeah. Yeah, I feel like it just needs to be a little bit demystified, a little bit because it is actually quite a complex area when you get into the nuts and bolts of the different projects in different areas. So thank you for that, Bradley. Ed, who are you and what are you up to?
Yep. So I'm co-founder and CMO of Pin Network. Essentially, what we are doing is like getting any device that has internet connection, and we can turn it into a node inside our network. So we work with data centers, individual contributors, ISPs, like any business or individual that has hardware with internet connection, they can contribute to our network. And in return, this allows us to provide very scalable, very cost-efficient networking solutions for use cases like VPN routing, content delivery, data scraping. Basically, any networking use case can be powered through our infrastructure. So we don't work as a final services. We build very modular, universal infrastructure that can be used by any bandwidth-heavy business.
Okay, interesting. So it's mostly your nodes mostly require CPU and network connection, is it? Like a solid network connection?
Mostly like internet connection, because like basically if you need to process data, you don't really need a lot of like CPU or RAM or something like that. It's like very limited like requirements on other resources from hardware. But you definitely need like a stable, good internet connection to get rewarded. Yep. And in our case, we can work also with like apps, with like mobile phones and laptops. So we just launched Bing app like almost a month ago right now, and we have 200,000 nodes connected to our network at the moment. And these are
Amazing.
all phones that have installed PinGap and computers extensions running on our network.
Very good. So are you guys kind of competitors of Mysterium? Would that be
Well, you could say that.
similar?
In our opinion, there's like not much real competition in Web3 market in terms of like bandwidth infrastructure. We've got like very cool projects like Grass and Pipe Network and Blockcast that are doing final services, and like their main like value proposition is like technology that we have built, and our goal is to build most geo-distributed, most efficient infrastructure, and like we aim to solve like the fragmentation problem on the bandwidth market, because it so much depends on local points of presence, and it's so hard to scale your physical infrastructure worldwide if you are doing it like as a one company. But even though we've got like data centers all over the world, and we've got like lots of underutilized hardware at homes, there is no place for all this hardware to be connected and run in one single network, so businesses could access it like from one simple API integration. Right now they have worked with like 10 to 20 vendors to get enough geo coverage, and lots of Web3 projects, they actually create like additional fragmentation on the market and not solving the like foundational problem, and that's what we focus on mostly.
Okay, so who can you give me an example of who, like a perfect customer or a perfect user?
Yeah, so right
of
now we
PIN?
have like two main customer profiles. We have like 5 B2B pilots running on the DevNet with us. All of them VPN providers. They have almost 10 million users, and essentially they're using like servers to process data. And another like profile that we are like right now only launching in like pre-launch stage, talking and planning to onboard, is different businesses that provide data scraping APIs, and what they basically need is like lots and lots of residential IPs, and that's what we have a lot. So we are planning to onboard them to our infra as well, and they will be like providing data scraping services to their end B2B clients.
So that would be, when you say data scraping, are you talking about, I mean, at the scale I think that you're talking about, you'd be looking at like search engine indexers and things like that, that would be dealing with like, you know, all of the internet of data kind of, or like huge data sets rather than, you know, on the smaller end of
Actually,
things, or
like the
some of just
market
ones.
is varies a lot. So we've got like very niche use cases. Basically, you can use like data scraping APIs to power your AI agents, for example, for like testing your website, just like doing QA. You can use it for research tools. You can use it for like financial research and all that stuff. And obviously, it also can be used for training models. So you gather like lots of information from like Reddit, just like basically
Okay.
scraping the internet, crawling like all the websites in the niche that you are interested in, and the use cases like vary a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you know, for some of the locally hosted LLMs, where you might want to do like a deep research type of a function, you know, you're going to want your AI to be able to get out and not be penalized, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
like MCP market is on a huge rise right now, and those like agents and tools really need real-time access to web. So
yeah,
that's one of the main use cases we also focus on.
right. Very good. Coming back to you, Nate. Do you, what kind of stuff like do you run on the nodes?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
is it
yeah. So our devices.
compute?
So yeah, right now we have, I think we have 15 different workloads that we're running on there. We just added Playable just came on recently. It's a gaming ecosystem, and Helix, both gaming. But I started in the gaming side, so I have a lot of connections within the gaming ecosystem, the Web3 gaming side. So, but in reality, we have hundreds that we want to add to the ecosystem. So, much like Ping Network. I mean, is your guys' node? Is it a free node, or are people buying it? I was curious on that. Ed. Are you there?
It's free, or are people buying them?
Well, I don't know if you heard me. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I think I lost like connection for a second. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just talking about our nodes. So like on your guys' nodes that you guys are those just free for anybody to download on their computer, or is that a
Yeah. So right now we're like in a closed DevNet. Those are nodes that we mostly set up ourselves with like our data center partners. But we plan to go into testnet, and everyone will be able to run it. So I think we like have a perfect opportunity.
Yeah. So it's exactly right. Like, so right now we have a bunch of paid customers to get through, but we're in our ecosystem. We want to keep in this tokenomics side is we want to keep us no higher than 60% in terms of workloads on the network itself, and that allows us for a couple different things: failover for in case people unplug and or just power goes out, whatever. So we have failover side, but also we have the ability to grow and add large customers as we continue down the road. But there's dead space. Well, there's protocols out there like Ping Network, and there's many other ones that are just downloaded ecosystem software. As we vet that through our team, we will probably run a decent amount of that to actually reward those people to not just 60%, but then add it to the ecosystem of now we're running it at 80 to 90% to where we can then take those nodes offline if we need that extra bandwidth, because it's not a paid service. It's just a free one that we can offer. And as we grow, like I said, we got 1,700 plus devices out there, and we keep moving that out there. It's just network just gets bigger. We have a lot of opportunities there. We want validators. They're a big one. We're going to be running on AVAX. We're in AVAX L1. And so obviously being that we're going to have our own validators, we want to be the L1 that runs all L1s, right? So the ability for us to be able to push those out there into a truly decentralized network and not AWS or Vultr really is going to be appealing to people that's in that ecosystem. So,
yeah, 100%. It's properly decentralized then, not.
Yeah, I mean, decentralization is a kind of a loaded word. We've talked about it a few times, but in terms of like the hardware right now, it's a decentralized. We're moving even more. I think we're at 1.5 devices per person. So we have some whales that have bought multiple devices, but overall in the ecosystem, like I said, 1.5 per person in devices, and then 500 cities, 34 countries, and then internally as an operation. We are going to transition into a decentralized autonomous corporation to further decentralize how we operate. Not a full DAO in that sense, but we want to create a more decentralized opportunity and organization in terms of a corporation to be able to help create that decentralized factor there. So, yeah, that's kind of what we're doing.
How does that work legally? I've always wondered about the crossover, because I know there's different ways that you can do it, but like obviously just having a DAO that's has token holders or whatever, or NFT holders that are have governance over decision making is one thing, but like legally joining like this Web3 world, digital currency world to the real world, how does it?
Well, I'll kind of just give a brief overview of kind of the idea that we're working with. So a normal like DAOs that we see, and I say normal, it's a newer concept in the ecosystem. It's a decentralized autonomous organization. A lot of times you see it is either token holders, NFT holders, they're a part of this ecosystem, and they get a vote in whatever that ecosystem is. And it's in a lot of cases, it's hard to have a direction with those. It's usually community driven. Votes are driven, from those people that own those tokens or whatever it is, and they can do some really cool things. We've seen some DAOs that do some good stuff and some great stuff. But what we want to do is we want to keep that corporate structure in place because of direction and focus. Corporations, like for better or worse, we see some amazing. We aren't here without corporations and the direction of CEOs and CMOs and CEOs in those corporations to drive, innovation in this technology. And so what we want to do is marry the two together in a decentralized autonomous corporation. And so in that, we were giving 50% of voting power to the actual network. So the actual device owners themselves will each have a vote within this. And so 50% of whatever happens is voted on by that network itself. And then the other 50% is broken up within the corporation side. And so we've got founders, we have employees, we have strategic investors that are going to be built into this DAO itself. And that's going to create the other half of that, the voting power that goes into place. So breaking it down into that sense, that's going to really kind of push it in that way. And we really see that as a strong push for, the direct. Again, I keep going back to the directions because we want to keep that focus of what we want to do. And we want to grow this network. It's not just Web3. We're starting Web3 with where it is, but the full design of it on the back end it's much like it's Vultr or AWS. Anybody that's ever going to use AWS would come to the Deep network and be like, oh, this is the same thing. I know how to deploy here. Great. So we expand out, not in just the Web3 world. Its front-facing side is going to be completely agnostic to Web3. People aren't even going to know that it's Web3 because they're just using a virtual server. So that's and from there, you want corporate structure for sales and marketing and everything else that's going to go into it, and really build and grow that network. So,
yeah, I mean that makes sense, and that's kind of where there's that crossover between like DAO and like LTDs or corps.
right.
Because you're always going to need, as you say, like a sales team or marketing team. How do you run that? How does it get funded? So yeah, it's tricky, especially if you're largely just dealing in digital currencies and then you have to cross over to the real world at some point. I don't know. In the States, I suspect it's probably worse in some ways and a lot better in others. In Europe, it seems to be getting trickier and trickier to to have that sort of two kind of sides of the business. Like a lot of the banks here don't want to know about it.
Yeah. We got some bills that are coming into play in the States that are much more favorable. Hopefully we see some things pass this year in a little bit more direction, regulation wise. There's some really good stuff out there that I'm seeing. So we're excited about that. Hopefully we see that come to fruition.
Yeah.
In our case, when we've been like thinking about governance and what would be the utility for token, and what we've come up with is that what people really want and expect from the protocol is like security and transparency for their like contributions and the parts of protocol that they interact with. So when we've been thinking about the governance, it was pretty clear that in the future, all the reward formulas and the rewards that will be going to validators and all that stuff that is being run by community and powered by it should be really governed by the people that have stake PIN token, that have contributed a lot to the ecosystem and have real impact. And I think that's like one of the most important parts in keeping long-term alignment with the community and the people that power your network.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we talk about this a lot. Nate, you and I have spoken about this too, about decentralization on governance. And I think to start with, you have to start a little bit more centralized, because you have this issue, if you give too much governance to the community right off the bat, most community members, I hate to say it, are going to vote in their own best self-interest. They're going to want as many tokens as possible to start with. So I think, especially in the early stages of a project, it is important to still have a decent amount of control, for the founder of the project and the project itself to guide the direction. But, what Deep's doing, they also, they started off centralized as well on their workloads, with Nerd Node, which I think is a huge advantage, actually, because as Nate said, they're able to move revenue over to the project immediately, and they didn't have to go the decentralized route. They, by going the decentralized route, they're actually sharing the revenue of these workloads that they were taking 100% of that internally with NerdNode. They're now splitting that revenue up with the community, but their goal is to go decentralized. So to me, I think that's a huge green flag with their project, aside from the fact that they're going to turn on revenue right away. But yeah, I like what you guys are doing with the governance too, Nate. Like I speak very highly of your project, and their team is fantastic, by the way. They a couple of their team members and their CEO, they know how to drive revenue. They worked in the IoT world and had McDonald's and large corporations as customers. So they really have a team that can pull it all together.
IoT is the DePIN before DePIN,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. The Internet of Things. Yeah, I remember when there was conferences about IoT conferences was all the rage once upon a time. Your salt and pepper shakers are going to have like chips in them to tell you when they need to be refilled and all that. That was no joke. That was actually what somebody used as an example when they were talking about IoT in the early days. So that was quite funny at the time.
It's funny, but our CEO walked in with our old office and he brought in a dishwasher. What are you doing with the dishwasher? And he's like, "Oh, we're going to turn this into a deep device." And I'm like, "Get out of here!" I'm serious. We didn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. It would be a very interesting experiment. I don't know if anybody's done it already, but just to see what kind of, like to sort of benchmark the processing power that's in various devices that are around. Because I feel like at the moment, anything with the chip in it is potentially a DePIN device. It seems like people are trying to put them on everything.
They're trying there's from toothbrushes to everything. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Yeah. Interesting headline though, AI training models powered by toothbrushes by Oral-B.
I mean, the data, everybody wants the data, man. I mean, that's where you're going to get it. Data's king.
It is
true.
Data. They say data is the new oil, right? I mean, look, with DePIN blowing up the way it is, you're going to have a lot of new projects come in. Not all of them are going to be legit. I mean, I think you really need to look at the team, and you need to look at the case for driving revenue. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. We've shown that token incentives can drive participation. What we're seeing now is demand in certain projects, and I think it's absolutely critical. And that the matching of the supply and demand. Okay, and that's so you're not overbuilding,
Right.
you're not getting coverage in areas where you don't need it. And Nate, I'll call out Deep again. He said we have 1,700 nodes. They have demand for way more. They cut off sales and they're throttling sales so that they can match supply and demand. They don't have a bunch of nodes sitting out there with no usage. We're seeing the same thing with like DABA network, where they're only deploying in India. They're deploying Wi-Fi in India where they have demand, right? Helium's doing a similar approach where they have a grant program, $50 million they just announced, where you can apply for it as long as you're installing in areas where there's a high traffic area where it's going to get usage, you can get that grant. And WeatherXM is doing targeted rollouts in areas where coverage is needed. I think that's going to be the big point of emphasis moving forward is matching supply and demand and getting coverage where the network's going to get usage and actually drive revenue.
Yeah, it's a really interesting equation because, obviously, like in some of those examples that you listed, like India needing Wi-Fi and that kind of thing, they can quite clearly see what the demand is going to be, right? But there's other cases, like, for example, in our case, like our network is global, and it's very hard to know, like, where the demand is going to be. Like, for example, we have some VPN, very high earners in Mexico a while ago, and we were kind of like, oh, why is that? And it was, we don't know for sure because it's hard to get beyond the first-hand data that we have really outside of speculation. But there was a feeling that probably it was a holiday period for Americans coming down visiting Mexico, so The supply demand there meant that there's just a lot of people needing VPN service back to the US because they wanted to watch their TV shows or whatever. So the guys that were running those nodes in Mexico were just killing it for that period. But again, that's kind of cyclical. So yeah, it's an interesting equation.
But what I've seen in the last past 12 months, I think there is no real problem with getting supply from crypto community. There is if you have real demand, if you show that there's real world value that you create, and there's you're onboarding businesses, the demand will follow. It's there is always some guys in every region that want to deploy nodes. There's lots of node running communities and projects, and it's so much easier these days than, for example, Helium had in 10 years ago. But
Right.
What's the real problem for most of the DePIN projects that I have met and talked is getting demand, because we're actually in the market where we're competing with usually it's Web2 businesses that have been on the market for 15, 20 years. They have killer business teams, they have long-term contracts, and it's really hard to compete with them. And even though we have usually our products 10x better, 100x better, it's not always enough to onboard those really big enterprise clients because they see lots of risks, because you have to build connection. And that's why it's super important for everyone to invest their resources and time into building sales and marketing. And even though it might not bring results from the start, and it will take time, that's the investment that will definitely pay off in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd love to get your opinion on that, Bradley, as somebody who's had an eye into a bunch of different projects. It seems to me, or it has seemed to me in the past, that the more, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way because I consider myself a nerd, but the more nerdy a project is, the more nerdy an ecosystem is, the more hardcore open source decentralization, the less commercial they are. And obviously biz dev sales are as commercial as it gets. So I've always seen that as kind of a challenging paradigm, let's say. Do you feel like in DePIN that the momentum is there in terms of effort, at least, if not results yet, on the biz dev side? Because I agree with what Ed said completely.
Yeah. I first want to reply to what Ed said. So I agree. I think if you build out the supply, the demand will come depending on the project, of course. Part of it is there has to be a total addressable market that you're moving into, and you have to have differentiation to grab market share, right? So if you have those pieces in place, I agree with you. But to your point, Neil, yes, I think you need to have both ends of it, right? I think we've seen networks where people, I mean, you can say it's they nerd out or whatever. They're really, really smart at building out networks, but they don't know the business side of things, and they don't have the sales and marketing aspect, to Ed's point, right? You need to have both. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of DePIN projects where they are pulling it all together. But if you don't, if you're only building out supply, you could have a great network, but if there's nobody using it, it doesn't matter. So you really have to be able to drive the demand as well. And I think we are seeing teams really pull together, and there's a lot of great examples of it. But we've also seen projects fail because they can never get the demand. So Deep Network's a great example, obviously. Dava's a great example. I just interviewed the CEO of 375 AI yesterday. I mean, they're doing a tremendous job as well. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But to Nate's point, a toothbrush, DePIN, maybe I'm not seeing it, but I don't know where the demand is going to come from. The revenue is going to come from for that. I'm not sure.
Oral
I think they had, I guess they had one that was. They'd run this like a vape to earn.
Yeah, right. That's another one.
I'm not really sure what the business case is there. Maybe again, somebody I'm not closed-minded. Someone could change my mind, but they'd have to do some serious convincing.
I think you're gonna see it's really cyclical in the crypto ecosystem, and all of us in this DePIN side, we're in crypto, right? It's we've chosen to approach customers in this ecosystem. We could have done a decentralized network and not done the crypto like marketing side of it, but we did because we knew people understood what we were trying to do. And we're going to see a cyclical factor. You know, we go through this bull market and you're going to see projects just rise and go crazy and have a, you know, like massive, crazy valuations. And they're not going to do well after the fact because they're not going to manage their money well. They're not going to actually build and put it into things that are going to create the market, and they're going to fall off and turn into this dust that everybody holds in their wallet down the road because they didn't do the right things. But you're also going to see projects that come in and do the same thing and rise, and everything will kind of dip when you look at the token price, but you see what they're building, you see how they're expanding, and they're still around. And we've seen this. I've been around since 2012 in the crypto ecosystem, and you see it day in, day out, or I should say year in, year out, cycle in, cycle out. And those projects that are still around, you know, 2, 3, 4 cycles later, you know, they've built something huge. So
For sure.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a shift, right? And DePIN especially. I like price aside, obviously the DePIN sector right now, the prices are pretty suppressed, but I'm actually more excited about DePIN than I have been ever at this point. I mean, I don't know if you all saw Fortune came out with an article 2 weeks ago talking about how crypto has a perception problem, but they highlighted DePIN as an area where true building is happening. And you hear like Ariel, the CEO of HiveMapper, talking about how VCs, not your typical crypto VCs looking for a one market cycle play, but your Web2 VCs are starting to look at DePIN. And I'm looking at the fundamentals. You know, the teams that are building, and if anything, I'm paying more attention when the market's down to the teams that are building, because that is, to me, that's a green flag. You know, the ones that disappear when market conditions aren't great, those are the ones to avoid. But you know, the amount of building I'm seeing right now, even with market conditions not necessarily great right now, that makes me super excited about where DePIN's headed.
what are you talking about? Market conditions not great? Are you not watching Bitcoin? Where are you? Where are you? We're in a bull market. I will stand by that. We're going higher. We're going higher.
agreed.
We're not in a bear market. Did you see my Twitter post? Did you see? You should look at my Twitter post, man. I'm telling you.
I'll take a look.
I found signs. that the bear market there is no bear market. It's
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
Bitcoin has led this market cycle. There's a lot of institutional money coming in. I do believe as we see the stablecoin bill pass, as we see some regulatory environment open up, I think we'll see more and more traditional Web2 investors come into the space. And what are they going to look at? Well, I think DePIN is going to resonate for those types of investors. When you have real businesses being built that are solving real world problems and driving actual revenue, that's what's been missing from crypto, in my opinion. I think DePIN solves that problem.
I agree. I mean, they look at it like they have you have hard assets that are deployed and visible to them, and you know, when you actually have income coming into those ecosystems as well. Like DePIN's definitely a space that they're going to. This is why I liked Web3 gaming as well. Like Web3 gaming was another one of those that you could see people that really they played and put time into these games and money into these games. It's a huge industry. So there is an opportunity there to bring that Web2 side into Web3. And DePIN, again, I love it because it's really the aspect people understand it really well, right? I can explain what I do to people and they're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I don't have to go into like what a blockchain is and how it functions and how do you validate transactions. So
yeah. Automated market making and bonding curves and all that stuff.
Rug pulls. What's a rug pull? Let me tell you.
So
You lose all your money.
Neil mentioned that earlier, right? Where he said, you know, you're talking about how it can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated.
No.
You know, and then that's one of the things about DePIN is like these are, as opposed to like trying to explain blockchain. You say the word blockchain and people's like brain shuts off, you know. Or trying to, you know, explain what decentralized finance, DeFi is. When you're talking about, hey, you put a dash cam in your windshield and collect street level imagery to create a fresher map than what Google has, you know, explaining HiveMapper. Well, that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, what Nate said earlier, when they can use your product and not even know that it's on blockchain, that it's Web3 at all. I mean, that is and that's what they're building, that's where you're going to see the next wave of investors come in and onboard it. I think DePIN can do it because, again, it can make sense to anybody.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and shout out to Havelo on that one, because that's kind of one of the goals of our team is the app is so, like, we'd say it's as easy to install as Spotify, because it is. You just download it and install it. And is it going to be a perfect solution for somebody who's as technically capable, and can run multiple nodes themselves? Probably not. But is it amazing for somebody who has no idea and doesn't want to know? They don't want to know about crypto. They just want to put something on their computer that's as easy to install as Spotify, and then at the end of the month, click send me my money in dollars or euros or shekels, whatever. And it just arrives in their bank account, and that part of their electricity bill is paid for, or in some countries it would be a second income. That's our goal and our hope that we can achieve at some point in the future. Certainly, I would love to see that happen. I think one of the main question marks I have at the moment is how heavily reliant we are on tokens, essentially on ecosystem tokens. Nate, you mentioned tokenomics earlier on, and I know you guys have a token as well. We've had in the past, kind of like in past cycles, we've had Bitcoin pumps like crazy, and then the sort of the gains flow downhill. So essentially, new money enters the market, goes to Bitcoin, profits get taken, and it flows downhill to alt season usually. Has kind of been what's happened. Hasn't really seemed to happen this time in this, I agree, bull run, Nate. At least my Bitcoin bags hope so.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? Is it just a macro thing, Trump tariffs? And do we reach a point where DePIN tokens sort of become uncoupled from that thing that happened before, with, say, like VC, Web2 VC type money flowing into the DePIN ecosystem?
I definitely see the VC side flowing into DePIN. I definitely see the want for them to get into that. The problem that we've came across, we're fully self-funded. By the way, we've talked to many of VCs in different conferences, been offered checks to be a part of it, and we've turned it down in the sense that what we see in a lot of projects that get VC funded, not all, it's a lot of projects get VC funded. The VCs, the reason they're coming to crypto, the reason they love crypto is because of the liquidity that they can get right away. And so, their terms are very strong, and they want a certain percentage of tokens. They want to be a part of, TGE. They have a certain way they want TGE to happen. And, these are things that they want to have set in place for their investment with you. And it's all set up for them to be able to then take their liquidity out, or part of it out, get their money back, plus, massive earnings in a really short time frame, which ultimately has a very negative effect on the either latecomers or the community in general that weren't the VCs that got in on that side of things.
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong, there's a place for VC funding. There's a place for funding in itself for places, but the crypto market's been so ripe for this to be just taken advantage of by VCs. And I've seen it for cycles, right? And it's really, this is why we built ours out the way we did. And we actually went down the route of not doing a token too. We thought about just doing stable coins, or paid in just USD. That creates regulatory problems on that end for us if we try to go that route. So we did choose a token, and we chose the tokenomics to basically benefit the device owners, these beginning device owners specifically, like that are here to really help out us grow this network. And we share in the revenue, but you see that the founders themselves, we didn't give a really large share to ourselves. We also have lockup periods for certain situations that we have to get to. And in reality, the network, there is no token for us that got sent out so when the token actually drops, NerdNode, who has the first workloads that are being put out there, doesn't get any tokens. 0 tokens for NerdNode. NerdNode has to purchase tokens off of the market to run their workloads on the network. network. So we are creating that flywheel. I'll be excited to do this podcast again in about 3 months because we got some exciting things that in the NAS world that's going to be coming out. And again, we're really focused on Web3. We're pigeonholing ourselves on Web3 for a reason, is because they understand tokens, they understand how it operates, and we can market to them and really drive growing both the revenue side and the actual network hardware side in a manner that's really going to allow us to then expand into a lot of other things. But we're driving that revenue and that flywheel effect that goes into play there. And it allows device owners to be able to either, hold that token, use that token. If they're running their own nodes themselves, they can sell their token and take that out of the ecosystem. So there's a lot that we want to build within that, but we're creating that flywheel to start. So there has to be dollars flowing into the ecosystem to turn that flywheel, and not just a drain of tokens coming out and there's no other side buying. So it'll be a fun. I'm excited when TGE does happen, because we're also not doing. We're not going to be doing any centralized exchanges to drop. We're purely going DEXs, and we're not doing anything at all internally. We're not setting up the liquidity pools. We're allowing the community themselves, if they want to set up a liquidity pool, to create that there. Then so be it. Have fun. Let's see what happens. We fully want that flywheel effect to be organic in how it happens. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Are you using, by the way, 100% love to have you back on when we're on the other side of all that, because I've been through 5, I think, TGs at this stage. And yeah, that's a special time, let's say, to speak kindly of it. Are you using launchpads? Are you going down the launchpad route, or just straight soft launch? Buy the tokens direct.
Well, we might actually do like a full announcement on our TGE. We might just say, hey, guess what? Check your wallets. We might just, who knows? Like TGE is one of those things that we don't want to hype it in a point of, we just don't want too much hype with it. Like, again, there's a small community that we have, that's really again, the community I keep talking about, but we have a awesome community that's built in this. We didn't do a lot of marketing. We didn't do a lot of push that goes into it. So again, we're fully just self-funded. But what it's done is it created this core group of people that are involved and see what's going on. You can see Bradley is not paid by us. I just want to say it, but Bradley came to us, did his own research, and was like, hey man, I really want to do this. But he speaks the same way a lot of our community speaks, because they see our vision of what we're really working towards getting to. That's going to benefit people and the DePIN community, and we love it, man. We want to support that and bring that to play. And if we really hype up the token itself and try to do this whole big thing, it really waters it down, right? The token's there for utility. We're trying to build that utility in there, and so we really just want to create that opportunity for that utility to run. So that's our goal. So, not to say we're not going to do a lot of marketing down the road. We have a lot of stuff built in. You'll start seeing stuff here in a couple months that starts to play out. But it really is. It's about building the core base first, and then moving that out.
It's not paying me yet. I'm kidding.
There you go. Let's talk after, Bradley.
He's playing the long game.
How many devices do you need?
Value first, eh?
I think I was gonna say, I think that is like the question though about DePIN. Kind of what you posed is, can these projects decouple from the broader crypto market? It's a Nate's point. I think it comes down to that flywheel effect, the revenue. We've seen revenue pick up. We've seen token burns. The question is, can we get to a point where the revenue is outpacing the token emissions with some of these projects? I think we can get there. But until that happens, I think we're still going to be subject to the volatility of the broader crypto industry. But I do believe we will see DePIN start to decouple. We've seen it with a project like GeoNet to an extent, right, where they've had ample token burns. They have revenue coming through the door, and they've been far less affected than other DePIN projects in the recent pullback. But I think it is really the question as far as having your own token for every project. Can you drive enough utility through revenue into that token to make it self-sustainable and not having to create new emissions to keep that thing going.
Yeah, it's a dynamic that all crypto companies have to work with, and it's really interesting to see the different stuff that comes out, because what you see a lot of the same things that happen. Staking obviously was a huge thing that came about, and it was like everybody's staking, everybody wants to stake, and so people implement that into their stake and hold, and what are you going to earn off that staking? And then there's burns that come into play. Well, people love burns, let's just put a burn into play. And sometimes you see people add burns for no reason. Like there is a place and time for a burn. It's very rare, by the way, that you actually need a burn. So when you see a lot of these, they already talk about it as one of their like top things that we have implemented in our tokenomics. So why are you implementing a burn from the get-go? There should be zero reason you implement a burn from the get-go. Like there's key things that people use in these in their tokenomics that are just buzzwords to get people excited. Like, ooh, they've got sinks and burns and staking and all this kind of stuff. And really it's like, well, implement utility. Like, where's your utility? Just give me that.
Yeah, good thing that's like, I think there is a growing trend of interest for the projects in crypto that generate revenue. And I think they are starting to like decouple not only in DePIN, but in like DeFi and other sectors as well. They like fall into different category and interest of like different investors, Web2 investors as well. And I think that's like a very positive trend in the last year.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Bradley. I think I could chat to you guys for another hour, actually, but I feel like it's the DePIN Coffee Hour, not the DePIN Coffee 2 hours. So we should probably wrap up. Yeah, do you guys want to have a final word? You want to go around?
I talked a lot, so Ed, why don't you kind of jump in, man? I've been taking over.
Yeah, super excited for the invite. Thanks for hosting, Neil. And anyone listening, if you are interested in like monetizing your internet connection, go to ping.network.io and install our app extension. We're also rolling out some like new exciting updates in the next month. So yeah, that's basically it.
Cool. And is your token live and viable?
No, it's not live. It's like points right now.
Okay.
But yeah.
Convertible
In the
at a later date. Right. Cool. Bradley, do you want to go next then, seeing as we're going this way?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. Cutting off in an hour. I have a flight to catch. But no, thanks for having me on. And I'll say I don't have a token, but I do on my YouTube channel. I cover a lot of different DePIN projects. I do very regular updates. I only cover projects that, and not financial advice, but I only cover projects that I personally am invested in. So, if there's a project that has red flags, I just avoid it altogether. So, and I'll say this much, after being at the Bitcoin conference last week and seeing some of the headlines, I think DePIN is kind of this hidden gem that is sitting there with a lot of building taking place, a lot of really, really smart teams building in this space. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved. There's plenty of projects you can participate in for free. But I would say, get your feet wet in the space, follow all these people, that are in this live stream, and try to get involved in any way that you can, because I think that there's a very bright future ahead for DePIN.
Yeah, 100%.
Bradley's exactly right. Like, the best thing that I think people can do is listen to some of these podcasts like this. When you get knowledgeable people like Bradley, you get people involved with, projects like, Ed and myself and Neil, that they're going to speak about everything that's going on in the ecosystem, and really get involved. Like, the idea that DePIN, I love DePIN because you have to get involved. It's not just, you just come into an ecosystem, buy a token, run away. Like, you're involved. You're deploying something, whether it's on your phone, in your car, into a restaurant, like whatever it is, you're involved with that. It's physical. There's a lot of cool stuff you can come from that, and you're gonna build relationships within these communities. So really get involved, get into the Discords, get into the Telegrams, whatever they got going on, and communicate and ask questions. Be the question asker. Like, be the guy that's asking the questions. So, and demand the answers. So that's what I say. And thanks for having me on, Neil. I appreciate it.
Yeah, listen, thanks a million for being here. And just on that, I think I don't think the Web3 community at large needs much encouragement when it comes to demanding answers to questions. Seems like, at least from the communities that I've been involved with, that people are fairly forthright when they want to know something, even if projects themselves don't necessarily always want or feel that they should have to share all of that information. But in any case, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. It's been absolutely fantastic. Loved this conversation. Thank you to everybody who's watching for tuning in. Obviously, if you weren't watching, it would be kind of pointless us having this chat, even though it would still be just as enjoyable. Until next time, which will be this time next week. See you later.
Take care.
Bye, guys.